Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for another Journaling on a Budget starting from scratch. We're getting very close to the end of our book, and I just thought that today is the day to get the spine done. We're going to sew in our signatures, even though we do have some pages left. And I prefer to do my pages loosely, which means that this is one of the signatures and it's not sewn in yet. But when I get really close to the end, then I like to get the cover done so that just as I'm finishing it off, everything looks like it's going to look when it's done. I don't know how to say that, but anyways, it's just time. So what we're going to do, to start with, I want to start on the actual spine itself. What are we going to do with this spine? So I have a paper towel roll, and I am just going to cut it, and then we will straighten the line out. Okay, first things first, we need to decide, this is the size of our spine. We need to decide how much of this paper towel roll we're going to need for our spine. So if we put this on here, and I don't like it to be, I like to use the paper towel roll because it gives you a really nice rounded spine, but I don't like it to be like way out there like that. If I was going to put a 1/2 inch on each side of my cover, that spine would stick out that far. So we've got to cut some of it off. And I kind of like the looks of probably right about there. And this end is a little bit dented right here. So this end I'm going to cut off because we do have to cut some of it off. And so I'm going to be cutting some of that off. So first off, I think that we probably need to cut off, I'm going to say I want it to come a little bit past my fabric. So I don't want it a 1/2 inch past my fabric, maybe 1/4 inch. So if I want to cut it right there, I'm going to just put a mark. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold this here. I'm going to decide where I want it cut. And I want to cut it right here. My fabric's there, and I'm going to cut it about 1/4 inch. Well, let's measure it so that both sides are the same. Yep, 1/4 inch, 2, 3, 4, 5/16. One little mark past 1/4 inch. Now, that's the thing you had to be careful about. Don't let it move. Yep, okay. So I'm going to hold that there and turn it over and mark the same distance, just don't want it to move, from this piece of fabric out onto right there. I think I'm going to do a double check. And on this one, when I was showing you where my fabric was, there's a little mark there, so I know really easily where to line that one up to where I measured, probably about that round. And yes, that looks good on this side too. Okay, so now that we've got that done, I'm going to just kind of, I'm not going to really super flatten it, but I am going to flatten this side. And then I'm going to hold my ruler flat against the top because this should be fairly straight. So that should, if I make sure that my ruler is flat across the top here, that should make my line pretty straight. And the thing is, we can't tell for sure if it's exactly straight because I just cut a line, so that line's not straight. So we're going to do this, and I'm going to cut it. And then we'll see how it looks. And we're going to cover it so it doesn't matter if the line shows or not. There we go. Okay, so now we have a straight line there. And I'm going to, here's our mark for the other side. So I'm just going to hold this down. I'm going to see how far over that is. That is 4 inches. So I'm going to put a mark there, putting my ruler on this edge. I'm going to do the same thing here. 4 inches. There. And the other end. And as I always say, whenever you're measuring for a line, make 3 marks so that you can tell you've actually got it lined up. That way, if one of those marks is way off, you know that you've marked one wrong. Maybe you marked it 4.5 or 4 1/4. I do that kind of stuff all the time. Okay, so there are my 3 marks. And I'm going, oops, I followed the paper towel roll. There we go. And we're going to cut that. And this is going to be our spine. Now, if you don't have a paper towel roll, you could use a piece of cardboard and just kind of roll it around something that's round and about the size that you want it, like maybe your paint jar or something like that. Or if you have one of those skinny rolling pins, the flat skinny rolling pins that are all straight, that would work too. Just roll it around something and, you know, you'll get your bit of a curve there. Now what we're going to do, okay, first things first. This has got this little teeny tiny triangle on it. I don't want that there because those spots sometimes can be difficult to work with, you know, all of them. So being that that's really small and I can cut off that much. Let me double check with my book just so I'm not mistaken. Yes, I can. I'm going to cut that off. And I'm going to cut off both ends, so I'm going to just cut this one off right here, and then we will measure how long our book is, and we'll cut the other end off too. Okay, this was our bad end, and so I definitely wanted to get rid of that, but I didn't like that little corner down there. All right, now we're going to do the spine of our book, and we are going to do the spine of our book at the same size as our book cover. And, you know, then we can always trim off a little bit of this if we don't want it hanging out. I really kind of like the looks of that hanging out, but if you make your spine longer than your cover, it can get squished on, you know, especially the bottom end. So we're just going to make this one the length of our cover. Well, come on. Okay, hold it there. And mark it here. There we go. And let's see how long that is. It's 8 1/4. So we're going to go over to this side. Really line our ruler up with the end of that. Mark 8 1/4. One line in the middle. At 8 1/4. And one line towards this other side, which we don't have to because we've already got it there. Okay, so let's line those 3 up. And cut it right there. There we go. Now we have the basis for our spine, so long as we have the right size. And there we go. That's what our spine is going to look like. And I like that. All right, so now we have to decide what are we going to do with our spine, which is why we did it first, so that it can sit aside and dry while we are working on sewing in our signatures. Make sure you don't put your spine on before you sew on your signatures, or you won't be able to, well, you could sew through the spine. With the rounded spine, it would be hard. So a lot of times I do a T-spine, which is open up a tea bag, mix it with glue, and put that, paint your spine, and then sprinkle that on there, paint it on there. So you've got all of these little tea leaves on there, which is great. But this time, I thought maybe we will do kind of like the old-fashioned bound books, where they've got the little raised bit. I'm trying to find, okay, here we go. So we have, I got this when I went to the secondhand store. And we've got our fabric. I'm going to need a piece of a plastic bag. Okay. So, I mean, we don't want this, but we want a piece of string of some sort. Now I need to decide. We're going to put fabric over this string so that it has the dent, and I'm trying to decide, do I want this size or do I want this smaller size? No, I think that I want this size. This is what we're going to use. Just going to unwind this. You know, this came like this, and that's very pretty. But when you, always look at things to think, okay, but what else can I do with it? I need to unwrap this because I need a bit of this string. I'm going to put 2 at the top, 2 lines at the top, and 2 lines at the bottom. I'm going to give it a good stretch to try and straighten it out a bit. I probably should have decided this last night, and then while I was sitting watching TV, I could have just sat there and just kind of massaged it until all of those little wrinkles are out. Luckily, they're coming out really easily, because I'm not sure about, well, that one, they're coming out easily too. That's good. It wasn't wrapped so tight that those kinks are just really set in there. But if they were, you could just sit and, something to do with your hands. Just sit there and straighten it out for a while, and then let it set and rest. Okay. Now, we have to decide, where do we want our marks. I want 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom. And, let's see. I'm just kind of looking to see. One there. Is it about as wide as my ruler? It is. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, for one mark, we are going to come down I just want to make sure that it's straight. There's nothing like getting something like this all put together and then looking at it and going, oh, that's just so crooked. So I've got a line there. Come in on the other end and do the same thing. Maybe we'll do 2 at the top and 1 at the bottom. Okay, now I think I want to come down about well, the string's going to take up a little room itself when you put it on that line. Let's see here. And that's all you do, is you just kind of like look at it, test it out, see what you think. That's at a 1/2 inch. I think that's a good distance. So I'm just going to line it up with my line, because I know my ruler is square, and then I'm going to go a 1/2 inch plus 1 mark. So that would be 9/16. But to me, it's a 1/2 inch plus 1 mark, which drives my husband absolutely crazy. There we go. I've got my 3 lines. Going to line up my ruler. And there we go. So at the top we've got the 2 lines, and at the bottom 1. I'm trying to think if I think we need 2 and 2. I do. So a 1/2 inch and a mark. A 1/2 inch and a mark. And 1 more over here. There we go. Okay. So there we go. Now we are going to use our tacky glue and we're going to glue this on. Now this can get a little bit frayy at the end, so I'm going to actually cut extra more than what I need. So that that's on the outside, and I can cut that off later after I finish everything. All right, so let's cut 4 pieces that size. 1, 2. Whenever you measure something, you should always use the same piece to measure, because otherwise what happens is the next one gets just a teeny bit longer. And then the next, if I were to, this is my measuring one, okay? So I measured that one, cut it. I measured this one and cut it. If I had measured that one and then used that one to cut, this one might be a little longer. Then I use this one to cut, the next one will be a little bit longer. And if you're cutting quite a few of something, by the time you're done, there will definitely be a difference between your first and your last. Not that every single one's going to be absolutely perfect, but if you continue to change each time, you're definitely going to grow as you go. Whoops, it didn't cut that string. There we go. Okay, so now we have 4 of them and we're ready to go. And how am I going to do this? I think I may, because I left the extra sticking over, I think that I may put them on there and stick a book on top of them, even though it's going to kind of make this flat. We'll round it up again when we go to put our fabric on here, because we're going to put it on with water, glue, and glue. And so the water glue will make this flexible enough to go back to the shape that we want it. So let's get our Walmart bag so that we've got something to put on there before we set our book on it. And all we need to do is just use our glue, put it right on top of the line, and actually, I might try taping one down also. gluing it and taping it. Because we have the medical tape that we bought. Just trying to make sure it's straight. Let's get that medical tape. Where is it at? Here it is. I'm trying to think how I want to do it. I think I'm going to lay the medical tape down and put this right on top of it. Oops, right in the middle, pretty much. My ends have moved over a little bit, but that's not going to make a difference because, those are the ends we're going to cut off anyways. Now let's see if we can line this up with our glue. I'm going to line that up. Press it down on both sides like that. Line up this side. We got lots and lots of extra stuff here to deal with. Now that we've got the tape on it, the tape should keep it from unraveling. I am going to cut this off right at the edge of the cardboard. If I can get to a spot that'll cut it. Boy, that's heavy stuff. And then eventually, I'm going to wrap that tape around there. Let's cut this one off. We'll get it. We're doing this together because, number one, I haven't made one of these spines in a long time, so I've kind of forgotten how I did it. Although I never have taped it down before. But I thought of that earlier, thought that that would be a good idea. Then I forgot, and then I just thought about it again, so. Because it's going to really hold it in place better. And it doesn't have to go anywhere because it's medical tape. It's not shiny. It's not going to, it's not going to be hard to glue to or anything. So we'll be able to leave it right on there. Okay, so then we're just going to straighten this up as we go. Press down our tape. And I should have just put one line of glue on here and done one at a time. It's got a little bit of kinks in it from it coming off of there. That's all right. We're just going to give it a pull. That's another thing the tape is going to do, is it's going to keep it from kinking up too much, hopefully. Now be careful, I have a little bit of nails and, they're kind of cutting the tape because I'm pushing with my nails. So don't do that. Push them with something that's not going to the back of the scissors. I like the way that worked. That worked very well. I want to kind of round this up again. just to make sure that it's not going to okay, that's going to work. Now I'm going to just take the tape and fold it over to the inside. Just like that. I'll do that on this side too. Now you do want to make sure that you cut your string right about at that point, because you don't want a big bulk of this trying to go around the corner, and you don't want to try and glue it to your spine if you've got a big lump of the string underneath. And this one right here has got a little bit of that string wanting to really fold over, and I'm going to nick that off of there because that would cause us problems later. Just trying to nick just in the middle and leaving the tape so the tape continues to hold better around the corner. There we go. Yeah, that's better. Alrighty. And there we go. Now, it may not look that great now, but by the time we're done, this is going to look really cool. I'm going to put another little piece of tape on there where I nicked it, because I want that to, it kind of pulls down on that and gives us a nice edge on the string. Instead of being as big and bold, it kind of flattens it out a little bit when you pull it over around that corner, which is what we want when we put it on our spine. So there we go, we've got that. Okay, I'll do one more and then I'll go off camera to do the others because that will just take forever. But again, we're just going to straighten this out. And I'm going to try and cut one end. It doesn't matter, it's going to unravel anyways, okay. All right, so I'm going to put the tape past the end. And then I'm going to line this end right up with my line. And right up with the edge. And I'm going to tape that down right from the start, instead of doing it the way we did the last time. There we go. Now we have a really nice start there. Just fold the tape back a little bit and put a little more glue on here, since I've wiped it all off. You know, the thing about glue is not necessarily about putting a ton of glue on something. It's more about letting it dry. And I'm just going to follow that line all the way around. Press it down in a few spots. Okay, and got it right there. And pull the tape around the edge. There we go. We're just going to go in and press that down. You could like put it on your glue bottle or a glass or something too, if you want to have something to press against and hold it while you're doing it. You do want to keep the roundness to it because we don't want that to pull totally if we try and round it after it dries. So let's try and keep the roundness. And we want to try and make that tape pretty flat because we're going to put fabric on top of it. And so we don't want all the wrinkles to show through the fabric. Get both sides well. Make sure that it's kind of straight. And there we go. Now we have one end of our spine done. So when we have that on our book, we're going to have that really pretty raised area. So I am going to do the other end, let it dry for a little while, and then I will be back. Okay, I am back, and I've already dyed some fabric, and then I thought I better bring you back for the next part. The way that I dyed this fabric was I just scribbled on my plastic with some green marker, a little bit of brown marker, and then I dripped some white paint. I went ahead and squished it all up, and then I stuck my fabric in there and squished it together, and then I just used my fabric and even a little more water sprayed on there, and I used the fabric to wipe the whole thing off. So that because I wanted my fabric to not be solid green, but I wanted it to be green everywhere. So in other words, we've got darker greens, lighter greens, a little teeny tiny touch of brown right there. You know, I wanted it to have some dimension in the color. And it's still wet because now I want to put a little bit of green and brown on top of this, and I think leaving it wet will make it soak in better. So I have a piece of plastic here that is big enough to cover the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to, and there is quite a bit of dark in our book, and so I'm going to kind of even it out a little bit. I got a little bit of the white paint on my green marker, so hopefully I haven't totally ruined it. You have to be careful about getting the paint on your marker and make sure that you wipe it off. So we're going to put the green on there. And then we're going to put some brown on there. And you've seen me dye the paper and everything this way before. We dyed fabric at the beginning just like this. I want quite a bit of color on here. And then we're just going to give it a spray. I hate that my spray bottle doesn't spray. But I will tell you what I did accidentally do. I thought this was a bottle of water. Obviously it's not because it still has the label on it. So when I first started, the very first time I did that, I sprayed this on it. It's like, why is my plastic sticking together? That's hairspray. It didn't hurt anything, but I really wanted it to kind of spray better. But it is what it is. It's what I have. Because we're going into fabric, I want quite a bit of water. If you were doing paper, you wouldn't want so much water. I'm just going to fold this over. Kind of just press it around. I don't want to mix it a whole lot and make it all just like one kind of dark, yucky color. And we're just going to separate it. And I don't like this really darkness all the way down the center, so we're going to move some of that around. Let me see, what do I have here? Do I have a little piece? I'm going to grab a piece of garbage plastic because I don't want to soak it up, but I don't want do it all over the whole thing. And this is going to darken our fabric up a little bit because our book is much darker than this. So I'm just going to lay this down to pick up that color. Now, because this is going to be, you know, like put onto our spine, we really don't have to have color on both sides. But I'm going to do both sides because that way we can choose which side we like the best when it comes time to put it on our spine. And I figured I'd come on and get this done now too, because just like our spine, this is gonna have to dry. Okay, that didn't put a lot of color on there. Not a whole lot at all. I watered it down too much. It is much more splotchy than it was, but now I've darkened it up a little bit with that green. I think I really want to just do brown now. Hopefully we won't ruin it, but if I ruin it, I have more fabric, and hopefully I have enough marker to redo it. So, which I should have a lot of brown marker because I really haven't used that much, I don't believe. Just so. Just a little spritz. And now there's still green on this plastic, so the green will still mix with it. Let's see what that does. Okay, it's hard to see, but we have a little bit of pattern there, and I'm going to leave the pattern on there. A lot of times I don't like to have any kind of pattern, but our book cover has a bit of pattern to it. It's kind of a, it's a marbled look, kind of like an Hebrew painting is what it is. So let's see if we can get this brown on here and see how it shows up. Oh, that's much better. I don't know if you can really see that, but you know, it's not super dark, but we've got the brown there, and I'm going to just hold it over to the book. I'm not going to bring the book over here. My hands are just nasty, and you know, everything's wet. But what I'm going to do is, this kind of stops right about here, and so I want to just make sure that I've got enough here to do the whole, I want to make sure my length is long enough to do the whole spine. I'm pretty sure it is. Yes, it is. So this side is nice. This side is not quite as, it's got quite a bit of color to it also. So I'm going to kind of just grab up any little bit of extra that's there. And we'll let it dry, and we'll see if we need to add something else to it when we can hold it up to the spine. Or hold it up to the book and see if it's the look that we're looking for. We might want a little bit more brown on here, but we'll let it dry first and see if maybe the brown takes better if we let it dry first. So we're going to set this aside to dry now, and that bell was Papa. So I'm going to stop right here. We will let this dry. The spine is also drying, and I will be back, and we will sew in our signatures next. Okay, I am back, and we're going to put the signatures in our cover now so that we'll have that nice and solid. I'm going to set these aside for just a second to decide where I want to line my signatures up in the journal. So I just want to see how wide is our spine. All right, so our spine is almost 2 inches wide. Okay, so we don't want to go in the middle because we have 2 signatures. So 1 would be the middle. And actually, we're not quite 2 inches wide, so we're not going to say that 1 is the middle. Let's see what we've got here. Okay, so this is 1/8 of an inch shy of 2, so it's 1 7/8 inches. So 1 1/16 is the center. So then Wait a minute. No. 15/16 is our center. So what's half of 15? We'll just say 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll actually say 8. A half an inch is where we will put one signature, and then we will come in a half an inch, which we're already in. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4. We need to come in a half an inch, which is right here. Let's measure that to see. Yep, that's a half an inch. So a half an inch is where we want to line up our signatures. Alrighty. So what I'm going to do, half an inch, half an inch, and a half an inch. Let's see where we are from here. Okay, so this one is 1 and 1, 2, 1 and 3/8 is the next mark. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3/8. 1, 2, 3/8. Okay, and I'm going to lightly draw a line here. This is where we are going to actually attach the signature. So this line is not really going to show. And I just want to make sure that when I go to put my signature on there, that it is pretty straight. Okay, so now when you look at this, it's kind of like, well, we've got a little bit over here and a little bit over here and a whole lot in the middle. You have to remember that your signature is going to go down right, the middle of your signature will be right on this line. So half of the pages of your signature will be on this side. Half of your pages of the signature will be on this side. And again, likewise here, half of them will be on this side and half of them will be on this side. So you'll have twice as many pages in the middle as you do on the outside edges. And that's why the middle looks twice as big as the outside edge. It is, because we need to fit more pages in there. Alrighty, so, excuse me, I am going to find the center of the signature, which is right there. Yep, alright, move that tag over. Move this over. Just kind of want to check and make sure that none of your bits are too close to the fold. Make sure that they're out of your way while you're poking your hole. Okay. Make sure that you're lined up nicely. Push them together. And I am just going to eyeball this. And I'm going to just put, I'm going to use my knife. Move that over for a second. And I'm just going to come down about an inch from the top, making sure that I'm right in that fold. And I should put a piece of cardboard behind this. And then I'm just going to kind of just round it up a little bit. Now, if you have a skewer in your kitchen, if you have a little bit off here, once you really start, you kind of just have to go with it. But since I've only done one hole, I'm just going to make sure I'm good. When I moved it up on the cardboard, I moved it. If you have a skewer in your kitchen, if you have a pen that doesn't have ink in it, if you have a pen that has ink in it, that's okay too. You can just take your pen, especially now that I've got the hole there, and just kind of push through and make yourself a nice round hole. I just don't like to get a big glob of ink right there. So then I'm going to come up about an inch from the bottom. Make sure that you're right in that fold. That's the most important part. Not where you are up and down, but where you are. I'll do that again. In the fold, side to side. That's the most important part. And one more in the middle. This is a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. It's the way that I do it. I don't know if it's the correct way. I have seen people do it a little bit differently than this, but this is the way that I like to do it. Okay, now I'm going to leave that right in there while I get my thread ready. Okay, so I have a wire needle here, which is a piece of wire. Just fold it in half, because the only needles I bought for this series were these little teeny tiny ones, and I don't want to sew it with a thin piece of thread. Now what I'm also going to do, all right, so we're going to go, I forget how many links I need. I think it's 3, but I'm not sure. So if we go through that hole and leave a tail, we go through that hole, then we come up through this hole, then we go down through this hole, then we come up through this hole, and then we get back to the middle. Okay, this is enough. And how long is this? This is 1, 2, 3. So about 3 lengths of your book for a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. That's an easy way to remember it. Now, what I'm going to do, oh no, I decided I wanted to use ribbon, actually. I forgot about that. What I was going to do here was I was going to take off this outside edge and use some of this string, because this is a nice, really heavy string, and the only other thing I have is thread. And so I was going to use that, but I decided that I would use the ribbon because it will look prettier. So we're going to go then, and when I do 3 links, I usually hold it off the edge of the page and then just kind of take it off the edge of the page. I'd prefer to have a little too much than not enough. I can always use that little bit on a snippet or something. So there's 1, 2, 3 links of the book. Close up our knife and cut that there. Okay, now I'm just going to put a little tail through our needle. Whoops. There we go. Going to kind of give it even a little bit more of a squish. All right, now we've got this like this, so now I'm going to take it out to do the 3-hole pamphlet stitch. You're going to go out through the middle, like this, and then you're going to hold on to that tail. You need enough to tie a bow anyways, so it's okay to hold a bit. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to put that there, but then we're going to come in through the top or the bottom. It does not matter which. Make sure that you get both pieces of your wire, both halves of your wire through the hole. Hold on to this and pull it through. There we go. Then we're going to go back down through the middle, especially with a wire needle where you've got the 2 halves, but even with a regular needle, don't poke through your ribbon. And with your double needle, make sure you don't catch it one on each side of your wire needle. Just going to go back down through the middle, making sure we don't catch that. I'm just kind of looking at this. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight because this is going to be, oh, duh. Were you asking me why was I sewing the book together before I put it on the cover? That was silly me. Okay, so once you get it figured out where you're going to put it, you are going to line it up on that line. Hold it there. Can you see? Yeah. Put this up here a little bit. Oh, and I moved it off the cardboard. I'm going to put a cut through the... And by making the cut, it makes it easier for the pen to go through. If you have something real sharp, you don't need the knife. Okay, so on the bottom, I am just right even with the green. And at the top, I have a little extra. I prefer my signatures to be a touch closer to the bottom than the top, because if you're going to stand it up like a book, that helps give it stability. I'm going to take my pen again, get back on my cardboard. I'm going to have to push kind of hard because I have to go through the cardboard spine that we made, and then we'll have to check and make sure we went through, because we've also got that fabric on there. And the fabric might, if I haven't cut through the fabric, the pen might not go through it. We might have to do it again, press with our knife again. So I'm just going to give it a really good twist. I'm going to do that top one again because I really didn't give it a really good twist. Now, if you have any clothespins or anything like that, if you clothespin this to your book, you will make it so that it doesn't move. So I'm just really trying to hold it to make sure it does not move. Put this back through here. And instead of picking it up, I'm going to see if I went all the way through. Yes, I did. I can feel it coming out on the other side. I'm going to give that. Oof. That's good that it's tight, though. Okay, so now we want to make sure that we don't pull our tail out. Leave enough of a tail to tie a little bow. And now we're going to have to try and line this one up. We're going to go through the hole that we made. Okay, so it's not coming. This is the only problem with the wire needle, is they do like to bend. But that's okay, because you'll get there. If you have a needle with a great big hole, you can use that. I'm going to put this through the hole. I'm going to open up my signature. First thing I'm going to do is get my needle through that hole, because my second piece of wire is stuck on the outside. When you do the wire needles like this, you should make sure that both of your make sure you have your wire folded in half. That is just not wanting to do what I want it to do, because my hole is so small. But we'll get it. There we go. Instead of trying to manhandle it, I should be nice. Make sure I don't want to pull this one out of here and have to do that one again. Okay, so now pull it through. And then find your hole, come through the top. Okay, so we went down through the middle, or out through the middle, however you want to say that. And then we came in through the top. And now we are going to go back down through the middle, making sure that we don't catch our ribbon. And I'm going to go through my signature and then go through my spine. There we go. Because you can always tighten it up at the end too. Okay, so we went out through the middle, in through the top, out through the middle, let's check our tail there. Don't want to lose that. I've lost it a lot of times. That's why I'm so careful. So back down through the middle or out through the middle and in through the bottom. Now I can see this hole is super, super tiny, so there's no need for me to be struggling with it. I need to just make it a little bigger. We're going to put a spine on this anyways. Okay, back in through the bottom. Find our hole here. Make sure we don't catch our lace there. And there we go. Now what we're going to do is, well, we'll leave the needle on. So now what we're going to do is we are going to go underneath this top one. So now everything is there in the middle. And I'm going to straighten it out. And so now we're in the middle like this because we brought this one up through the middle. This is our tail. And we're going to tie them together in a knot. Give it a nice good pull. You don't want it to go anywhere. And then, for now, you could tie a bow in it, which is what I do a lot of times if I have ribbon. But maybe I don't. Maybe I want to put a dangle on it. So I'm just going to cut them both off at about the length of the book. And then I'll decide later if I want to put a dangle on them or not. So there we go. There is our first signature. It's in our book. And it's a whole lot easier than I make it look. Seems like nowadays I'm just having troubles with getting things done. But part of it, I think, is I'm trying to do a few extras so that, now these are going to go here, but they're not in yet, so I'm going to move those out of the way. But I'm trying to get some extras done so that when we go to our daughter's in December, when she has her baby, you'll still have videos coming up. So I'm trying to be ahead. And that way, if other things happen too, I will hopefully be ahead. I think that, so now, because we're putting a spine on this, I did not measure where everything is to make sure that on the outside my ribbons are going to be the same. They will be covered up with the spine that we made here, which actually I just set this on another tube and just tied the ends around just to kind of keep it in its shape. And then when you do that, make sure that your both sides of your spine, that they kind of line up. Make sure that they're not on there all crooked like that, because if it dries that way, you might have a hard time getting it straightened back out again. So I just, make sure that they're kind of in line with each other. And I just did that to keep the shape. So it's still drying, but that's going to cover it up. So we don't need to make sure that they're exactly the same. Now, this one's a little bulkier than the other one. This would definitely be one that would be good to have a clothespin or something, or some kind of a clip to hold it together. So I'm going to come down about an inch. Ooh, that was a big hole. Come up about an inch, making sure that you keep those folds all together. Better get that out of there. And one in the middle. In the middle, as my kids would say when they were little. Okay, I'm going to hold that one there. And I did put a little pen mark on there. Oh, it just rubbed off when I put my finger on it. Okay, now we're going to line it up with our line. We're also going to line it up with the other signature to make sure that they are about the same. Now I have to remember that the window here is an addition to the book. This is the actual first page of the book, so that's what I need to be lining up, not the top of the window or the bottom of the window. And I'm really looking at the bottom of that window, so I have to remember not to do that. Okay, so I'm going to line it up here like that. That top is up there. It's a little high. Okay, so that's going to be right there. Yep, that looks good. Whoa, then I moved it. Okay, so that looks good. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to look this way and make sure that I'm actually where my line is supposed to be. Make sure that I get that curtain out of the way. Move it over a little bit to get it on that line. Okay, there we go. Now it's on the line, and now it's there. And poke through the spine. Make sure that we got some marks there. Yes, we do. Okay, so now I'm going to make these holes a little bit bigger. Now the spine is nice and solid, so it doesn't push as easy as just those papers do. And see, we're not even as far as I have this hole up here. Let me use my knife. But this one and this one are pretty lined up, so not too bad for eyeballing it. Just going to use my knife. Give them a bit of a twist. Especially since we're using the ribbon. It's going to fill those spots up nicely. There we go. Now we need 3 lengths of ribbon for a 3-hole punch. 1, 2, 3. And get our little wonky piece of wire. After a while, you end up having to get a new piece of wire because they get so bent being pulled and pushed and everything that they're hard to use. But this will make us for these last little bits. Open it up to the center. And we're going to go through here. I'm going to go through first. Leaving a tail. Then go through the cover. So out from the middle. And then in from the top. And like I said, top or bottom doesn't make any difference, so it winds up being exactly the same way, just upside down. And there have been times I have had to flip every single page and put every single page on my needle because I got it so unaligned, or because my holes were so little because I was using a very thin piece of string. Okay, and then we are going to go back out through the middle. Make sure I don't lose that. And we have to go all the way out through the middle. I'm going to hold that tail before I pull it. There we go. Pull that through the paper a little bit. And then make sure we get that out of the way. Put our ribbon back on our wire needle because it came off. And we're almost done. And you know, all of these parts where they go kind of slow, there's only 2 signatures, so I really thought I should sew both signatures in so you could see it twice. If you know how to do it, you can just fast forward through it. And there's a way to actually watch him fast forward. I have a video on that, but you just press on the cog. Once you're watching a video, there's like a cog and it will say speed, I think is what it says. And it's always on normal, and then you just press ×1, ×2, and it will fast forward for you. So then, once we come back up through the middle, then we're going to go through the top. We're going to double check and just make sure that it's tight. Again, that didn't have to be straight, but I just felt like I needed to do that. So then we're going to pull it tight, and just a minute, this one is upside down. Tie a knot 2 times around. And then you can either tie a bow or you can leave dangles in your book. Either way that you prefer to do it. Now it's in there. It's good and solid. I'm going to, for now, trim this off and leave it this way. And so there we go. Now we're all sewn in very simply. If you were going to have a book where you were going to leave these showing, then you would want to make sure that you made a template so all of your holes were exactly even. So there we go. Now it is all hooked into our book, and you can run through and make sure that everything seems to be good. So far it's looking good. Now our curtain will at least stay, you know, in its area. Let's see, what did we, oh, the center of this one we took out. Right here. So this is going to go in here. I'll have to think about these spots where I made the hole so big. And then finally, our hope goes there. Okay, so now all we have to do is attach our spine. And I will be back for that. Trying to think. Yeah, I'm going to just still put it on here. This is going to be one long video. So, alrighty, I'll be back in a minute.